Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez became the first openly gay judge to be elected in Bexar County. Within months of taking the bench, a complaint was made by a local defense attorney about the rainbow pride flag she had in her courtroom.
It came across very much like I was being targeted and discriminated against.
Many months later,
Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez faces multiple charges tonight, including a second-degree felony. We just got her mugshot a few minutes ago. It's right here behind us.
The two-count indictment accuses Speedlin Gonzalez of unlawful restraint by a judge, a second-degree felony, and misdemeanor official oppression.
So this might actually be the most insane woke judge DEI hire story that we've ever covered on the channel. And it involves a woman by the name of Speedy Gonzalez. No, we're not making that up. This is actually her name. Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez, someone who was previously celebrated as being one of the first openly gay judges in the San Antonio, Texas area. There you see her with the pride flag, which apparently stirred up a bunch of controversy because she was openly displaying that LGBT flag in the middle of her courtroom. So you kind of get an idea of who we're dealing with here, right? But apparently just over the weekend was arrested and charged after having what I could basically describe as a manic breakdown in the middle of the courtroom. Essentially, she was arguing over something with a defense attorney, lost her mind, and proceeded to have the defense attorney handcuffed and put in the jury box while she proceeded to verbally berate this attorney. Keep in mind, right? It's not like the attorney actually got physical or actually got rowdy. It's not like the attorney was removed or arrested for being in contempt of court. No, essentially, Speedy Gonzalez here just wanted to have her DEI hire power trip moment where she's acting like, you know, the lesbian character in a movie trying to stop the mansplaining or something and say, hey, look, I'm in charge. How dare you? I'm the judge here, and you're not going to mess with me. And I don't know, I guess she thought she was so cool or powerful for that. But it turns out that was not the case. It very likely seems to be a severe abuse of power, which is why the defense attorney, who was absolutely shocked over this, proceeded to bring criminal charges against the judge. Keep in mind, let's make that clear. This was the defense attorney who got handcuffed and put in the jury box, right? The attorney, the lawyer. Not the defendant, not the person being charged of the crime. No, imagine that in the middle of a court proceeding, you're having a back and forth with a judge or the other attorney, whatever it is, and the judge basically says, we're going to put you in handcuffs and sit there while I lecture you like a little child. Yeah, that's right. So you're probably hearing this whole story. I mean, we'll explain it. It seems confusing. It seems frankly surreal, but I want everyone to keep in mind that when we talk about the quote-unquote woke judges, which really stems with the rot that exists within our judiciary, that every time you see, say, some liberal judge strike down a completely constitutional and normal action from the Trump administration, or you hear these stories and think to yourself, okay, so you had a criminal who, let's say, just went and murdered someone, and the full background on them essentially reads, oh, they got arrested 14 prior times, 22 times, 56 times, 72 times, and you ask yourself, how on earth, even sometimes in red states, but blue cities right within those red states, how on earth do these people keep getting let back out onto the streets? Just keep in mind, it's because these are the types of characters we are dealing with in the judiciary in this country. And no, it's not just federal judges, it's state judges, it's local judges, and that's part of the problem. You wonder why either on the federal level, we have so many problems with the judges, or even on the local level, perhaps something that even affects your day-to-day life even more, why we have so many repeat offenders on the streets. I think this image right here basically sums up what's going on. And it's not alone. Just a couple of weeks ago, we further got the news that Judge Hannah Dugan, I don't know if you remember this woman, but that's the one who was arrested last year in Wisconsin for essentially helping an illegal alien evade ICE in her own courtroom and obstructing federal law enforcement, was found guilty. She's apparently now trying to request a new trial. But another situation, right? It's like, what is going on with these local judges? Well, I think we'll explain a lot of that here today. And frankly, right, why if you wonder what is going on with the judiciary in America, why do they seem so arbitrary? Why do they suddenly seem so powerful? Isn't elected government supposed to be the primary rulers of America? Well, the answer there is, of course, no, because we have people right now in the judiciary system that probably shouldn't be there. And when you want to talk about the greatest threat to democracy, the greatest threat to the rule of law and constitutional norms that they're always lecturing us about in mainstream media, this is the real threat, right? These people threaten rule of law and constitutional norms so much more. And, frankly, I think there's a strong argument to be made. We don't really have equal rule of law in the United States of America, because if you get in front of a judge like this, yeah, you know how that's going to go. Let's tell you about this, though, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of our latest news and coverage. And that said, for a great introduction here to Judge Speedy Gonzalez, let's revisit the initial controversy that made her famous in the local San Antonio area to begin with, which does involve this pride flag being flown in her courtroom. Keep in mind, in the middle of Texas.
Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez became the first openly gay judge to be elected in Bexar County. Within months of taking the bench, a complaint was made by a local defense attorney to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct about the rainbow pride flag she had in her courtroom.
It came across very much like I was being targeted and discriminated against.
And it wasn't just the rainbow pride flag that she was forced to remove.
I was also ordered to remove all rainbows from the courtroom. My mouse pad, the pen that I used, the robe where I had a sarape, colors.
Gonzalez states her disappointment is also because other judges across the state have not been required to remove flags or different color robes from their courtrooms.
Are they going to go to these judges who have an Irish flag in their courtroom or wear a camouflage robe when they want to, or, make sure that out in the rural counties there isn't a Confederate flag flying in some little JP court?
She has since made an appeal on the ruling and is awaiting to get her day in court, which can come later this year. And as she waits, she's making sure to continue to be a leading advocate for the LGBTQ plus community any way she can.
It's become a year-round type of approach to life, to live authentically and to live out loud.
The State Commission on Judicial Conduct does not comment on pending litigation. An appellate court of 3 justices is expected to preside over this hearing in Austin.
Okay, did you catch that part at the end? Because we talk about this all the time. She says she's going to continue being an advocate for the LGBT community. But wait, hold on a second. As we so often bring up as it pertains to left-wing judges, you are a judge. Your job on the bench is not to be an advocate of the LGBT community, whatever that means. You want to do that, go run for office or something. No, your job is to rule equally and impartially under the laws that exist, right? Not based on your feelings, not based on your biases in one way or another. We have the phrase equal justice under the law for a reason. And by the way, you can claim all you want that you're being targeted, but perhaps the very reason why there was a complaint filed against your obvious displays of ideological bias on the bench is because, according to the Texas Judicial Code of Conduct in Canons 3 through 5, right, things here are stated as it pertains to things like extrajudicial duties, including presentation of the courtroom. A judge shall conduct all of the judge's extrajudicial activities so that they do not, 1, cast reasonable doubt on the judge's capacity to act impartially as a judge, which it seems to me you're clearly not doing, because you're saying, hey, I'm advocating for the LGBT community. That's what I'm all about. Keep in mind, too, folks, this is someone who apparently was serving as a judge primarily dealing with domestic violence cases. So we have, situations where that could be involved. That could be a bias that she has. It'd be the same. Okay, she brings up, what about someone with an Irish flag? Yeah, if a case was brought to them that was like a hate crime by an Irish person or a hate crime against an Irish person, and this person is like, I'm so proud of my Irish heritage. Yes, per the Texas Judicial Code of Conduct and common sense, that might also suggest a bias. Now, we have no idea what they're talking about when it pertains. I seriously doubt there's any Confederate flags being displayed in courtrooms in the state of Texas, but if there are, and that judge is primarily, let's say, dealing with something like, I don't know, hate crimes, then yeah, I guess that would be an argument too. But she can cite that all she wants, but we're not actually seeing the examples of that. Whereas here you are openly basically displaying a flag that represents left-wing ideology on government grounds in a courtroom where your job is to act impartial. That's the entire point. Notice even in her defense of all of this, she doesn't try to make the case that, oh, just because I'm lesbian, just because I'm proud of being lesbian, do I serve as an impartial judge, right? She doesn't actually say that. No, notice, and of course, you know, she's being framed as this left-wing hero because of it. She's not backing down. She's standing up for her values. But that's actually the argument she should be making, right? Nope. Instead, it's basically this. Instead, it's basically, no, I am biased. I am super not impartial as it pertains to issues of, gender and sexuality and things like that. But put me on the domestic violence court. That's perfectly logical. So as you could expect, how this whole story ends, right, from this absolute insane person. Here is now the story of apparently why this radical LGBT DEI judge has just been arrested on stemming back to an incident back in 2024, where she essentially had this moment of mental breakdown.
County court judge indicted, accused of having an attorney handcuffed and then kept in a jury box.
As a judge, Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez turned herself in earlier this afternoon on both felony and misdemeanor charges. And KSAT Investigates first broke this story 2 weeks ago. Judge Speedlin Gonzalez's legal ordeal began back in December of 2024. During an argument with defense attorney Elizabeth Russell inside County Court 13, Speedlin Gonzalez ordered Russell to be handcuffed. Court transcripts show the judge then berated the attorney while she sat restrained in the jury box. Russell, who declined comment today, filed a criminal complaint. When we spoke to former employees who worked in Speedlin Gonzalez's court, they described the judge's behavior as increasingly erratic.
The 2-count indictment accuses Speedlin Gonzalez of unlawful restraint by a judge, a second-degree felony, and misdemeanor official oppression. Speedlin Gonzalez did not respond to a request seeking comment about this. Records show that she turned herself in just after noon today and was released from custody about 2 o'clock.
News 4's cameras caught the moment Speedlin Gonzalez walked into a courtroom to be indicted. Tonight, there are questions about what happens next.
News 4 San Antonio's Phil Sterling has been following the story for us all day. He joins us live with the very latest on the charges. Phil.
Now, County Court at Law Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez arrived here to the Cadena Reeves Justice Center to show up to a courtroom only feet away from her own, just down the hall. This right here behind me is her courtroom. We got a copy right here of the indictment of all the charges that were read to her, although it did give limited information as to what happened. At a county court, at-law judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez is in court, but not to preside over a case. She's here to be arraigned. She's been charged with 1 count of unlawful restraint by a peace officer or judge, a second-degree felony, and official oppression, a Class A misdemeanor. The Bexar County District Attorney filed a motion for recusal regarding the case, so a special prosecutor named Brian Cromeans of Goliad County was appointed to handle the case. Meanwhile, we reached out to Speedlin Gonzalez's office for comment and are still waiting on a response. What we do know is that she presides over the Refleo Court, a court specializing in reducing domestic violence by authorizing specialized supervision for offenders, like matching them with officers with small caseloads. But now, according to the Judicial Commission Online, when a judge is criminally charged, they're suspended without pay. The commission cannot reinstate them while charges are pending. The only question is whether that suspension stays unpaid.
Yeah, so a lot of questions are being asked as to why did she do it? What led up to the situation where she's handcuffing random attorneys in the middle of the courtroom? We'll explain the full timeline here in a second, but honestly, I think the real reason here is very simple. Because she's insane. This is someone who, again, is a DEI hire, should not be in that position. And as we so often see, first of all, that usually comes with a little bit of internalized insecurity, like deep down maybe in their heart and soul, they know they don't actually belong there. And so, I mean, I'm sure many of you guys have dealt with this on a regular basis. The people in response basically are overcompensating by being on this insane power trip where if you remotely question their authority in any way, like, how dare you? Are you sexist? What are you talking about? And, it's such a defensive response. Why? Because deep down, again, there's that insecurity. They know they don't belong there. Okay, that's first of all. Secondly, I would just like to ask the question. Do any of these DEI characters ever actually work out? It seems like it happens time and time again. We have the marketing girl for Bud Light who clearly had no clue what she was doing. We have judges like this. We have people crashing major companies, crashing vehicles. It just goes on and on. Is there ever a case where it actually worked out well, Because I think we so often see, too, if you're going to run in there as the first openly lesbian judge in San Antonio, Texas, and that's what you're all about. You're an ambassador for this, and you're trying to spread the message to everyone else. Hey, be tolerant of the LGBT community. Hey, we're normal. We should have equal rights just like everyone else. And then, and now everyone's watching you because of that, and because you openly celebrate that fact. And you go around and do this. You're not exactly acting as a positive ambassador of the community, but I feel like we've seen that story repeatedly, right? Initially you get the headline, first, I remember Los Angeles, for instance, with the fires, right? First, openly lesbian fire chief, and then half the city burns down, and it's the worst wildfire in Los Angeles history just like a year later, How many times do we need to see the same story over and over again? I don't know. But that said, okay, so here's apparently what we do know about the full incident. I'll read it for you just so you can get some context. The indictment gives general details while accusing Speedlin Gonzalez of illegally detaining Russell while acting in her official capacity as a judge. But these newly acquired court documents shed light on the courtroom dispute that led up to Russell being handcuffed. So here's what we have thus far. First of all, Speedy Gonzalez apparently asked the attorney here, are you going to behave professionally? Which seems to be like major projection on her part. But anyways, Elizabeth Russell here was the attorney representing a family violence suspect in December 2024 during a hearing in which the state had accused him of not checking in with his probation officer as well as failing to complete 40 hours of community service. So we do have someone here who just, is on some type of parole or probation and they weren't following it. Typical case. But here's where it gets interesting. So Speedy Gonzalez was presiding over the hearing. According to the court transcript, Russell briefly conferred with the defendant before Speedlin Gonzalez asked him directly about the allegations. When the judge did eventually ask if he indeed failed to report to his probation officer, he responded, "Yes, ma'am, that's true." According to the court transcript, Russell then again met with the defendant and told Speedy Gonzalez that he would like to recall his plea of true and correct the record. So, seems like pretty standard court stuff thus far. Now, Speedy Gonzalez responded saying that attorneys are not allowed to coach answers to their clients, so that's her disagreement. The judge said his initial response would remain on the record, but that the court would recognize if he later said the allegation, in fact, was not true. Everything seems pretty normal judge courtroom type of stuff thus far, right? Court records then state that Speedy Gonzalez then asked the defendant if it was true and he didn't complete his court-mandated community service, and then he said not true. Okay, Speedy Gonzalez responded. So you have a true plea for violation of condition for blah, 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 after being coached by his attorney. At that point, things escalate when court transcripts state Russell objected to the judge's categorization of events. Stop, Speedy Gonzalez said to Russell. It's on the record. Your argumentative ways are not going to work today. Stop, or I'll hold you in contempt, Miss Russell. I will hold you in contempt. Already, we're starting to see the crazy power trip behavior coming out, right? Keep in mind, even other people in the courtroom were saying that she's been acting erratically the past several months before all of this.
Well, Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez runs a trauma-informed court that claims to handle low-level offenders with care instead of treating them like career criminals.
But now this Bexar County judge has threatened to fire her staff if they have any contact with people who used to work with her court. People named in the judge's no-contact order have come forward. They described a case that investigates a judge whose behavior became erratic and aggressive toward defendants.
But what Garcia described as a dream work-life balance was shattered last year after she says the judge, who she's known for more than a decade and considered a personal friend, had a noticeable shift in behavior and began lashing out at defendants in court.
I couldn't believe that they're being put on the record.
Garcia detailed multiple incidents in an interview with KSAT, like one female defendant.
She had a pregnancy scare. She, thought it led to a miscarriage, so the judge went ahead and told her to invest in batteries and get basically a vibrator, less trouble. And that is what blew my mind the first time.
Or an 18-year-old berated by the judge after his case manager found a video with sexual content on his cell phone.
Calling him a poser. And, this young man is homeless. He lives in a group setting. He was triggered. He was shaking. It was ugly.
So essentially, she's losing her mind. She's a crazy person who, far from being an impartial arbiter of the law, probably should be institutionalized, frankly. But there you have it. So, Your Honor, I'm allowed to speak, Russell responded. You are allowed to speak, but you're not allowed to be argumentative, whatever that means, and argue just for the sake of argument, Speedy Gonzalez countered. We have no idea what that means. The back and forth continues between the two, with Speedy Gonzalez asserting, quote, I get to raise my voice in this court, not you. Meanwhile, the attorney asks for recusal. So that's right. I get to raise my voice in this court, not you. So the power trip, right? Absolutely off the charts. Frankly, if the judge should not be raising her voice either, but hey, I'm the lesbian judge, right? I'm in charge. Okay. It's unreal. I don't know what else to say about that. Unreal. Speedy Gonzalez then requested for Russell to be taken into custody. For what? We have no clue. Quote, put her in the box, she said. We're not having this hearing this way. Because the attorney raised their voice, but the judge is allowed to raise their voice, apparently. Okay. At 2:18 p.m., just 8 minutes into the hearing. So 8 minutes into the hearing, guys. It's not like this was going on for a long time. She tries to frame it as the attorneys arguing for the sake of argument forever and ever, screaming all this stuff. No, 8 minutes into the hearing. Court records state that the defense attorney is placed in handcuffs as she says, you need to contact him now, referring to Judge Sid Harrell, who oversees the 4th Administrative Judicial Region. Russell continues to plead her case for a hearing on criminal contempt. Speedlin Gonzalez responds by asking, I can hold you in contempt, Miss Russell. Are you going to behave professionally or aren't you? Asked again about if she'll conduct herself professionally. Russell says, I will, and then has her handcuffs removed, according to the court transcript. Speedy Gonzalez begins taking steps to end the hearing early, but the verbal spat continues with the following exchange, and, it goes on and on. So Speedy Gonzalez here states, you will not run around these courtrooms, especially 13, and think that you can just conduct yourself in the way you've been conducting yourself for at least the last 6 years, Miss Russell. So I don't know what that means. So is she admitting, the judge here, that she's not a normal judge who, presides by regular decorum and is mentally stable? No, I'm an insane judge. You're not going to even do your job as an attorney in this courtroom. What does that even mean? But Russell responds by stating, quote, Your Honor, I've only been licensed for 5. So she doesn't even know that, right? Speedy Gonzalez says, well, then it's 5. Russell then says, I've not conducted myself unprofessionally whatsoever, which again seems to be the case, right? There's a little bit of argumentation, but hey, that's normal courtroom behavior. But apparently Speedy Gonzalez here is just stating, she remotely questioned my authority. She spoke in a tone I found to be disrespectful. Let's put her in handcuffs. Apparently that's what happens when you put the woke brigade in charge of America. These people screaming about the rule of law. Apparently, you slightly raise your voice or something, they try to arrest you and accuse you of breaking the law. So, there you have it. And I think a prime example as to why you can't allow these type of people to be running anything. But Speedy Gonzalez responds by stating, evidently you are in an echo chamber of your own thoughts, because if you take a survey among judges and other co-counsels and other attorneys in this county, you will find differently. So basically, she's trying to argue that other judges in the county don't like this woman, this defense lawyer. But okay, right? Where do we see the other judges saying, we're going to handcuff you and detain you in the jury box and basically have this power trip moment over you until you behave? Well, you know, Speedy Gonzalez, evidently you are going to find a survey among, the criminal justice system that you may have actually broken the law with your insane and ridiculous behavior. And again, I just say, these are the types of judges. Okay, I understand she's a county level judge, but you know the point we're making here, right? These are the types of judges who are being hailed as neutral arbiters of the law as they arbitrarily just strike down and put temporary injunctions on everything that the Trump administration is doing. These are people who openly basically admit to the world that they are not impartial judges and still get celebrated as, oh, the Constitution won today, right? Rule of law won against the lawless Trump administration. Rule of law won when we released a criminal who got arrested 72 times, and then the criminal proceeded to go light someone on fire on the Chicago subway train or stab a innocent Ukrainian refugee to death on the Charlotte Metro. This is what rule of law looks like. This is how the judicial system's supposed to work in a free democracy. Actually, no, it's not, right? The opposite. But, anyways, essentially, guys, there you have it. That said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.